Hey, it's me again. It's been a while, I know. But, well, I got a new camera and a whole new setup. So I've been working on that, and I've just been really, really busy. Like, crazy busy. Like, yeah. Like, I don't know how I'm doing all I'm doing, kind of busy. But, you know, life happens, and here we are. So, I have a bunch of books coming out. I have 3 of them, in fact, coming out. I know 2 of them are coming out in October, which would be Fear 3 and The Ghosts of Brookhaven. Yay! Can't wait for that, baby. And then I believe A Midsummer Night's Reap will either happen at the end of October or maybe November. And it's Midsummer Night's Reap, yes, that I want to talk about with you right now. Why? Because you asked. A number of people have asked, what is up with this book? First and foremost, it has been, I think, 3 or 4 years since I've written in the Reaper series. I thought I was done with it. But guess what? Fans said nay. And they wanted me to come back to this series, and so I thought, why not? Why not give them what they want? Yes, indeed. And it turns out it's what I wanted as well. Because I had forgotten how much I absolutely loved writing in that series. Interesting note. After my editor at Devil Dog Press finished editing the book, she said, I absolutely love this series. So she's glad that I'm going back to it. The publisher's glad I'm going back to it. And you're glad I'm going back to it. So, the question that has come about with this book is when people found out the title, they wondered, what is the tie between this and Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare? So I thought, well, let's talk about it. Because the ties to this book are pretty deep, and they start a long time ago. Way before I knew I was going to become a writer. Way before I knew that I was going to write Reaper series. In fact, it goes all the way back to high school. And you're going to find out that there is also a tie between this book and Shakespeare and the Tubes. I know, crazy, right? Way back in high school. And I may have mentioned this before. When I first heard the band The Tubes, I was blown away. I loved this band. At the same time I discovered The Tubes, I discovered Shakespeare. And I think, I can't remember how it happened, but I believe that the English teacher in high school said that we had to read a classic. I don't know what, I think the teacher gave us the opportunity to pick what we wanted. And for some odd reason, A Midsummer Night's Dream appealed to me. I don't know why. Well, I was an actor. Well, I was starting to become an actor. And I thought, let's read some Shakespeare. I want to be an actor. I should want to read Shakespeare. So I picked A Midsummer Night's Dream and fell in love with it. And I was probably the only kid in high school at the time that had fallen in love with Shakespeare. So I read A Midsummer Night's Dream, loved it, and remembered how much I loved the Tubes. And in my naive brain, those two decided that they needed to become one. So I set about to write a musical version of A Midsummer Night's Dream using the music of the Tubes. Yay! Because I didn't know at the time that I would have to deal with royalties and all that jazz. But I started writing it, and I realized that the music of this band actually worked perfectly for this play. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. I never finished it. I don't even have a copy of it anymore, so I don't know what happened to it. But it was high school, back in the 80s. So I eventually just left that behind and went about my life. But at the same time, that stuck with me. This idea that the music of the Tubes would make perfect musical for Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay, so we fast forward to me deciding that I'm going to, in the interim between those two periods, I actually played Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream with the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. It was an amazing production. It was set in the 50s. It was all black and white. I had a silver leather jacket and black jeans and silver leather Chuck Taylors and big chops and tall hair, and it was awesome. We had a 500-pound mirror ball on the stage. Fast forward to now, when I decided to write the 4th book in the Reaper series. As you know, or you may not know, each book in the Reaper series is inspired by a piece of classical fiction. So we have A Tale of Two Reapers, For Whom the Reap Tolls, and To Kill a Reaper, and now we have A Midsummer Night's Reap. And for the first 3 books, they were only kind of minimally inspired by those classical pieces of literature. This time around, however, I thought, well, let's dig a little deeper. So I started writing it, and as it worked out, what was interesting, and I did not know this was happening, this was totally subconscious, and I swear to you, it was totally subconscious, that play, that musical that I wrote in high school, decided it wanted to insist itself upon this book. And then out of nowhere, I realized that the music of the Tubes, or there were going to be references to that music, and it was going to almost not feel like a musical, because it doesn't, but there's a lot of those original ideas that I had in that musical are in this book. And when I realized that, and I didn't realize it until I wrote one of the last chapters, which was really exciting for me, because as I'm writing this, the denouement of this book, it hit me that me from the past had crept into me of the now and dictated how this book was going to be. So A Midsummer Night's Reap is an homage to the very first thing I ever wrote. And I can't even begin to tell you how thrilled I was when I finally, not only when I realized that, but when I finished writing the book, that something that had been with me for that long managed to finally come out in a form that I can share with people. Now, I want to write that musical, and I have actually reached out to the Tubes, but they never got back to me. I'm going to keep trying. But I just find it absolutely fascinating how the subconscious works as an artist. And we don't even know what's happening. It just works out that way. And another thing is that the way I wrote the end of this book made me inspired what the 5th book in the series is going to be, because the 5th book in the series is going to be based on the curious case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Jive was a song. I can't even think of who that is. But anyway, it's going to be inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So it'll be called The Curious Case of Grim the Reaper. And I think when you finish reading A Midsummer Night's Reap, you'll understand where that's going to go. But I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am how A Midsummer Night's Reap turned out. I think it's by far the best book in the series. It's probably one of my favorite books that I've written so far. Maybe in a tie with Defying Gravity, which is interesting because Defying Gravity is all about being on the stage, and A Midsummer Night's Reap was directly tied to a musical that I wrote. So I mean, it's all just coming together, obviously. And so that's kind of how A Midsummer Night's Reap came about. And I think this series is special to me, partially because it's the first series that I actually had that a publisher wanted. And it set me on this course with Devil Dog Press, whom I love and have great respect for. And it's not just that. It's that I think that this series has something for everyone. And it was really the first kind of romancy book series that I wrote. And at the end of A Midsummer Night's Reap, that whole idea of romance takes on a completely different life. You'll understand when you read it. And here's a little quick announcement that is adjacent to that, is that I believe that I'm actually going to write my first romance novel. I know, crazy, right? But hey, 70% of readers read romance. So I'm just going to do it. And I have this great idea for a romance series that I came up with a few years ago, and I tossed aside because I thought, not for me. Well, it's for me now. And it's because of the Reaper series that made me realize and believe that I could put romance into all of these crazy worlds that I write and make it enjoyable, make it consumable for anyone, so that you don't have to be a fan of romance novels to enjoy a bit of romance in a novel. And I think that, I mean, Defying Gravity has romance in it. The Fear series has Fear series is crazy. It has romance in it. It's light. It's a little light-handed, but it has romance in it. Obviously, the Reaper series has romance. So why not, right? Anyway, I'm really excited about what's happening. And I've been doing all of these videos for these books, and those have been a great deal of fun for me. I've got a bunch more planned. I hope that you've watched them and enjoyed them. They've really challenged me, and they may help me learn a lot, which is fascinating. One of the things that I have learned, which if you are a writer, this is important. This is really, really important. A few of these videos that I have recorded, for example, the Vega monologue that I recorded, was improvised. The Vega was improvised. One of the cannibal monologues was improvised. And I believe the Bartholomew Marchbanks monologue was improvised. And I'm going to do the next video. The next two videos I'm going to do will be improvised. I'm going to do a vampire from Dracula Theory and Nigel from The Ghost of Brookhaven. Here's the thing. What these videos, these improvised videos, have taught me is that I have written characters that are dimensional enough and that I know them well enough that I could hit record on a camera and improvise a monologue for that character like that. And it goes both ways. It's not only that I have written these characters such that they're fleshed out enough that I know them well enough to do this, but it's also that while I am recording these monologues, I'm learning even more about these characters that can then influence what happens to them next, and if they continue on in other series. Or I just learn, I learn ways that I can tweak dialogue and make it even more believable. So if you are a writer, I highly suggest, I'm not saying that you should film yourself improvising these monologues, because it's not easy. But you should go off on your own in the garage or in the basement or somewhere where there's no one around and just improvise a monologue from one of your characters. Just let that spirit of that character embody you and let it take you on a ride. And you'll learn something, I promise. So anyway, that's what I got. It's been a hard year or two for everybody. And whatever you can grasp a hold of that can give you joy and help push you through all of this, please do so. And I'm confident that if it weren't for my writing and these videos that I've been doing, I don't think I would have made it as intact as I am. So be safe, be careful, and take care of yourself. You've got to take care of yourself. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you so much for being a part of my world and listening to me blather on as I do. Support indie artists wherever and however you can. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. You've earned it because you, my friend, are awesome.